SportsCar Championship on IMSA Radio.
Hello everybody, welcome to Lime Rock Park and to IMSA Radio and IMSA TV. Lime Rock Park, been around since the 1950s and the third oldest continuous operational racetrack in the United States of America. Just a little 1.5 mile bull ring. Always been a little bit of a contention about exactly how far it was. In the early days it was measured on a Corvette odometer at 1.53 miles it was. We've got a bit cleverer and a bit more accurate about how we do it now. So just under 1.5 miles for the configuration that we're running today. Officially there are 7 corners, although we are using the uphill chicane, which adds a couple of little wiggles. Big Bend is turn 1 down at the end of the Sam Posey Straights. Then the left-hander is called the left-hander, then the right-hander, then No Name Straight, then the uphill, then West Bend, which surprisingly is at the west end of the racetrack, and then the downhill or the diving turn to finish off the lap. The average speed is pretty quick. The opportunities to pass are slim. So in our Porsche keys to the race, right at the top is track position. And the 2 hours and 40 minutes means that we are going to have an awful lot of laps on the lap counter by the time we get to the end of it. Welcome to the broadcast, everybody, and to the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Jeremy Shaw is with me, John Hindhaugh, here in the Haggerty GBC, and Shea Adam is our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter. Shea, we did lose one of the entries before we came to Lime Rock Park. No Mercedes this weekend, sadly.
No presence from the Allegra Motorsport Mercedes that has been running the full season. That's Michael De Quesada and Daniel Morad normally piloting that car, which means that we do not have a Mercedes represented in the field this weekend. But correct, we have two today, and which one of them will take home the win? Well, that's just about anybody's guess. In terms of the past here, Porsche have a good record, so does Lamborghini. Audi as well have won in the not too distant past, so it really could be anyone's day. It has been a difficult track for Acura, BMW, and Lexus in the past. Does that change today? We'll find out in 2 hours and 40 minutes.
And it's not been plain sailing even for the form team coming in here. Jeremy Shaw, Racing, qualified well in GT Le Mans, but they've had to make some overnight changes to one of their cars. Jeremy.
The number 4 car is something they didn't like on the data. They've changed that engine, a brand new engine in the number 4 team, number 4 car. That will start with, therefore, in the 3rd position in that GTLM field.
Nick Tandy, not been here before as a Corvette driver. We sadly didn't make the trip to the Northeast last year, but back with a vengeance and with a great crowd. Watch out for Mother Nature to play her cards as well. We'll keep you in touch with that, but for the moment let's not worry about it, because we've got a dry track. The sun is shining and the weather, for the moment at least, is great to go racing. On the track it's spot on 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 90 Fahrenheit in the air. We prefer that on our international live video and audio feed. 32 Celsius in 38 Celsius on the track, and that is considerably cooler on the track than we've seen it in various parts of the weekend when it's been 10 degrees Celsius or 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than that. At the front of the field then, it will be Corvette, Porsche and Corvette in the 3 GT LM cars, with Jordan Taylor taking the pole position, and that number 3 car then will lead them round alongside the Porsche 911 RSR 19, the latest iteration of the GT Le Mans, the GTE car for Colonel McNeil starting that race. In GT Daytona, it's Heart of Racing and Aston Martin who have claimed pole position, the number 23. The sort of two-tone blue in a sort of flat, silky finish. Looks really very impressive indeed. Roman De Angelis claimed pole position there, and he'll start alongside Aaron Telitz for Vasser Sullivan in the Lexus RCF GT3 number 14. Behind them, it's Audi. Car bomb with Peregrine Racing, the number 39, the dark grey and green machine, and Frank Montecalvo for Vasser Sullivan. The second RCF GT3 is in 4th position. The lights are out on our safety car. It's into the pit lane. If we see it again, then something's gone horribly wrong. No split in the field. 16 cars, 8 rows of 2. Green flag in the air, and the Northeast Grand Prix for the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. 2 hours and 40 minutes is go. And we are racing down towards the first corner, and the pole sitter Jordan Taylor got a good jump, and immediately Tom Miller comes through from 3rd position and drops in behind his teammate. That means that the white with the blue and red Porsche in 3rd position, already under some pressure from Roman De Angelis, who wants to put something between himself, the Lexus, the Audi and the Lamborghinis that are in behind him. That's where the action is at the moment as they go down No Name Straight, side by side, further back with the Team Hardpoint EBM and what I think was one of the Compass Racing Acuras that was side by side. Further back down the field, no, it was the right car and the Acura that was side by side, the bright blue number 16, GT3R. Across the stripe, first lap, and already into the pit lane. Magnus with Archangel, clean start. Didn't see any problems there, Jeremy. Surely this can't be tactical for John Potter and Magnus in the number 44 white Acura.
No, penalty for improper starting time. So I guess they often change tyres having started from the back. And I guess they must have done so, but that was not to inform the officials, I guess.
So that's
a bit weird.
So that, in fact, is a procedural issue, because you can't change your tyres, but you would go to the back. It's about filling in the right piece of paper, and that will also cost a loss of points in the qualifying points race as well. At the front of the field, bright yellow Corvette with the blue cars goes through. Ahead of the hyperdrive grey car in 2nd place. It's not silver, it's Big Bend. Still sunshine with a little bit of shade effect at various parts of the circuit. XM202 around the US, around the world on RS2, part of the radio show limited network of channels. Find that on IMSARadio.com and IMSA.com. And of course, if you're outside the US, you've got sound and vision as well at IMSARadio.com. NBCSN team bringing you delayed coverage at 5:30 Eastern this afternoon. We are underway, Jeremy, and the Corvette's doing what we sort of expected they would do. They're going to have 2 or 3 laps of clear track ahead of them before they start hitting track.
Yeah, no, it'll be quite a while before a couple of seconds or so quicker than the GTDs, and with a 50-second lap, there should be better part of 25 laps before they catch up. A little bit less than that, but they're going to have a little time out front on the road. They're kind of trading fastest laps up. Tom Taylor actually quicker than Jordan Taylor. 1.275 last time around for Tommy Miller in that 2nd position. A good start so from Roman De Angelis to maintain his lead over Aaron Telitz. Big gainer at the start. Richard Goikhberg was now up to 8th position in GTD, having started 11th.
51.2 seconds, the best lap at the moment for the GT Le Mans. 52.3 for the GT Daytona. The Aston and the rumble of the 2 V8s at the front of the field before the V10, slightly higher engine note of the Audi. So Aston Martin V8, Lexus V8, V10 from Audi. That's your top 3 at the moment. And those 3 just going through the left-hander now after Big Bend and down through the right-hander onto No Name Straight. Heart of Racing team, what a run of form they've been in the last, well, a little over a year or so, maybe a little bit more than that. Podium finishes have been their staple, raising money and awareness for Seattle Children's Hospital Cardiac Unit, hence the heart of racing. Literally millions of dollars raised. A good set of people who enjoy their racing, and as I say, Jeremy, have been absolutely on point and really found their feet, particularly with this Aston Martin Vantage.
Yeah, they have. Resets the fastest lap of the race. He's set to lap 5 for number 53, 81 there to performance lead now to almost a full second over Aaron Telitz in second place. The lap record here, by the way, for the GTD is a 52.0, so just a second outside of that. But you know, it's pretty sticky out there right now. The sun is shining, or sort of shining over some of the track. There's some nasty weather in the vicinity. But we're going to hope that the radar with the byline
it's a very hilly area around here, and the weather gathers and changes and things bubbles up, so we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. Let's worry about it if and when it comes, and we'll tell you about the situation once we hear from IMSA. For the moment, let's enjoy what's going on down towards Big Ben, turn 1, as the Bayshore supported Lexus number 12, Frank Monte Calvo. His mirrors full of Madison Snow for the number 1 Lamborghini, the red, white and black car, the Huracan, driven by Madison Snow, young driver from Utah. Looks to the left, then to the right, down No Name into the chicane at the uphill, adds a couple of little corners. No chicane uphill for the line of challenge, but these cars are a little bit quicker, and so the option to use that chicane taken, and it does provide potentially a little overtaking manoeuvre if you have a decent performance advantage. It is that despite, Jeremy, all of the different manufacturers, the different configurations of the cars, the different philosophies of the cars at GT Daytona, it is a performance balanced class, and the technical team at IMSA are very good at balancing that performance. So it really is down to the drivers to find a little advantage somewhere.
Yeah, we've had 7 different manufacturers in the last 11 races now winning races in GTD, and won't change the balance performance in GTD. They're running exactly the same specs as they were last time out, and we saw through the practice sessions yesterday, regularly there were 6 or 7 cars within 10th of a second or two of each other, so it's super tightly bunched in GTD with all these different manufacturers. Great fun.
Hello to Daniel Morad, sadly not racing with us this weekend. Hope to see you and the team back soon, tuned in on IMSA Radio, RS2, part of the radio show and the network of channels. If you're outside the US, we've got sound and vision there for you too. IMSARadio.com, hit the live video button, and no breaks all the way through to the checkered flag. 2 hours and 32 minutes still to go. And starting again, just to plan and scheme. The laps go by quickly here. You've got plenty of time, Jeremy, to try and work out where your advantage is in the case of Madison Snow, currently in 5th position, and where Frank Monte Calvo and the Lexus maybe is at a slight disadvantage. And you have to work that out, and you've got to then maximise your advantage, and hopefully it's at a part of the track where your opponent is slightly less good than you are.
Yeah, the emphasis there on the slightly is absolutely right, because it really is fractional between these teams. This overhead shot is so cool to see how closely matched those cars seem to be. Really cool to see. Cooper McNeil, he's hanging right in there in that third position. He lost after 4 laps and 3.4 seconds behind the 2 Corvettes. The gap now to the 3 Corvettes, 3.6. So for the last 6-7 laps, he's lost about 2 tenths of a second. In fact, he just set his best lap of race. So hanging in there nicely with that third position. I don't think the Corvette cars are extending themselves now, but they are lapping very consistently in the mid-51s at this stage. So lap record at GTLM with 50.7 was set 2 years ago, last time we were here, by Patrick Pillay in the Porsche.
Now, we talk about the community that is IMSA right throughout the paddock. As mentioned, Daniel Mora and Alex Raidras as well, listening in the process of moving into his new apartment in Seattle. Alex, good to know that you're tuned in. Best of luck and traumatic time. Anytime you've got to put stuff in boxes and then take it back out again. Oh God, that gives me shivers. Hopefully we'll see you back on the track again shortly. IMSA Radio on XM202 around the US, around the world on RS2, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. We are live for you at the Northeast Grand Prix, part of the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, and with 10 minutes having been completed, it's Jordan Taylor by a second from his teammate in the second of the Corvettes, Tom Hill, 3 from 4, yellow from the McNeil driven Porsche number 79 in third. Heart of Racing in the two-tone blue Aston Martin Vantage number 23 leads by all of 8/10 of a second. Vassar Sullivan's bright yellow and black Lexus RCF number 14 are in second. It's the Audi of Carbon with Peregrine, dark grey and green, another 9/10 behind in third, and in fourth position the second of the Lexus, similar colour scheme, number 12 on the door. Making up the top 6, number 1, red, white and black Lamborghini Huracan GT3, Madison Snow. Then the FAF Motorsport, the plaid number 9 car for the Porsche FAF Motorsport teams. Also hello where it is 20 past 8, just after in the UK. Editor of DailySportsCar.com, Crackers tuned in at the moment, watching and listening. Hope you're feeling fit well. Very hot in the south of England at the moment, Malcolm. You've got the doors and windows open and you're spreading the endurance love to the neighbours. Good to know that you're tuned in. At IMSA Radio, if you'd like to get in touch with us, please. That will get you onto our screens in front of us here in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Early trip down pit lane for the number 44 Magnus, racing with Archangel NSX. That's the white Speed Racer car, and that was improper start procedure effectively. Changed tyres without letting the series know. Jeremy Shaw.
Yeah, and John Bonham was able to serve that penalty to get out. He's allowed down to the GTLM cars, but not to the GTD driver, which he's up against, and holding his own here. So it's a good lap for John Bonham, actually. And he and Andy Lanning, they won this race back in 2016, actually an Audi Magnus Racing banner. So John, he always goes well here at Lionel Park and has good speed here in the early stages as well. He's certainly closing up on that battle of 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th, which knows to tell. He's a few tenths of a second quicker, half a second quicker on the last lap, than that through.
And you say that, Jeremy, and our listeners and viewers on both trackside and further afield will think, forever to get there. That's half a second a lap, and the lap takes a minute. So, in 15 minutes' time, possibly even a little bit less than that, he's going to be looking at the back of Rob Ferriol's car, and that's assuming he only keeps gaining at the same rate. Rob's about to get into a fight with Trent Kingsley, Jeff Kingsley until Beckensheimer and Misha Goldberg and all the way down. The laps are so short here that when we say there's a small difference lap on lap, but those differences add up, and they add up very quickly.
Yeah, it's just amazing how quickly things can change here at Lime Rock. You can think everything's under control, all of a sudden you kind of look away for a moment or two and come back and everything's completely different again. I hope that's not going to be the case with the weather. It's quite nice at the moment. I've got some clouds around, so it's good news for the fans, definitely, and it's good news for the drivers because they don't have to worry about any precipitation at in GTD, which is kind of fun to watch, but no place changing. It is awfully difficult to make a pass here, and I think most of the teams this early in the race, they're kind of biding their time.
Yeah. I liken this to a heavyweight boxing match, and we're in the first round still at the moment. All right, we've had 16 laps for the leaders, but you know, this is a long contest. It's physically very demanding because of the quite high lap speed and the concentration levels that are required because of the amount of laps that are gear changes, braking events that you have to do. So it is physically and mentally quite tiring. So you're not going to expend all your energy, all the car's energy, and crucially, in these early laps when the car is heavy, all of the performance potential of your Michelin tyres. That was one of our Porsche keys to the race in our Michelin Countdown #3. And the tyres. Look after your Michelins earlier on, and that will pay dividends when you come into the second half of your stint. And the stints here, Jeremy, will be about what for the GT Daytona between full green flag fuel stops?
Good question. It's a bit of part now. They can do around it. This is not one of the tracks that is terribly hard on the minimum drive time for each of the drivers in this race in GTD is 45 minutes. So they can sort of easily do that on a tank of fuel. And it's going to be a question of, oops, there must be a mistake there from one of the Lexuses, because this is where the big battle as they head into the uphill chicane.
Yeah, and that's the Zach Robichon Pfaff Motorsport car that's got the best out of it, was in 6th position and has jumped ahead of at least one of the Vassar Sullivan Lexus as they go across the line, and it resets. Yeah, Zach Robichon up to 4th position. It was Frank Monaco has dropped back to 7th. Madison Snow has gone through as well. Turning on Sports, Robbie Foley. So a little bit of a shuffle. Madison Snow's lost a couple of positions. Foley and Robichon move up. Monaco drops back. Remember, they were battling for 4th position. When I say they, sorry, Monte Calvo and Madison Snow were 4th and 5th. So they have lost a bit of time, and it was Madison who was pressuring going into the uphill chicane. He got side by side, but then was slightly stymied coming out of the right-hander. That was all Zach Robichon needed to go through, and a beautiful piece of opportunist driving by Robbie Foley, who didn't really have all of the momentum he needed, but he got enough of the Turner BMW in there. A bit like a door-to-door salesman getting his foot in the door there, Jeremy. He was not going to be rebuked after that.
He wasn't, and again, there's a perfect example of how quickly things can change here at Lime Rock. I mean, it was number 12 car that made the mistake, so a little bit wide. Madison Snow took advantage of that, but had to go a little bit wide through the middle part of that chicane, and that was what gave Zach Robichon the opportunity to pass both of them. And Robbie Foley said, "Great idea, I'll have some of that as well," and completes his pass up into West Bend. So a tremendous shuffle around there. And the biggest loser, of course, Frankie Montecalvo goes from leading that 4-car train to the back.
Jeremy, we were talking about tyres and tyre life there. You've been talking to some of the teams, so have I. What do you think the likelihood is then that rather than using all the heavy racing fuel that we've got, that they might actually be looking at dividing this race up by tyre life rather than by using their fuel? I've seen it in other championships. It happens quite a lot at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, a very different lap distance here, but a track that actually in its character is not that different. It's uphill, it's downhill, it's switchback left and right. Tyres in terms of the allocation aren't an issue here this weekend, so throwing new Michelin tyres at the cars during the race might not be the worst thing.
Yeah, fair comment. I agree, and that's something that they're going to be keeping a close eye on. Zach Robichon actually having been freed for that little battle. He's just had his best lap of the race so far, 43.4. also, it's Roman DeAndrews had the fastest time in the class of 53.1 and 53.2 for both Tielitz in second place in the Lexus car of 14 and Richard Highstand in the Audi car of 39. They've both done a 53.2, and now Zach Robichaud is 53.4 as well. So they're again, but very, very early stages of this race. We're not even 20 minutes in.
Hello to Dave in the northwest of England, and it is the northwest of England that Dave's in. Still 23 degrees Celsius there in the early evening. Looking forward to this racing madness. Very sensible movement, Dave. As I said, a little bit of jabbing, a little bit of dancing around, just finding out what your opponents have got there. An hour later, ~9 in Central Europe. Hello to Corsa Jims, who's tweeted us at IMSA Radio, following the race from the Netherlands. Says thanks for bringing us the live coverage. Well, we hope you're all well there in the Low Countries. I know there's been very serious flooding and bad weather. Netherlands, Belgium, Northern Germany. Best to you and all of yours, Corsa Jims, and of course anybody who's got friends or family who are affected. We send them our best wishes. Extraordinary pictures from around the Spa and Nürburgring areas of Europe, places that we know and love very much indeed. So Cooper McNeil just losing a little bit to the two Corvettes. He's stuck in behind Trent Hindman in the Right Motorsports Porsche. Now down Sam Porsche Straight, does drag up behind and get up the inside in the Big Bend after being stuck there for a few laps, where he has dropped away just a little bit in the traffic now for Cooper McNeil. He won't want to take too many risks. Cooper, busy racing schedule of course this year, has been doing some racing in Europe as well, Shea Adam, and often to be seen on the Ferrari Challenge circuit as well, but choosing Lime Rock this weekend over a potential race at either the WEC at Monza or indeed Ferrari Challenge.
Yeah, Cooper has been participating in the European Le Mans Series, getting a little bit of extra track time in the RSR 19 because he will be running in the 24 Hours Le Mans this year with Fam Thorpe, so that will be exciting. I can't remember the last time he missed the entire Ferrari Challenge weekend. He's the defending champion of it overall, 2018, 2019, and 2020. The first race of that weekend took place just a couple hours ago, so it was the first one that somebody else got an opportunity to win overall besides Cooper, because he wasn't actually there. Quite a shock, and it shows you just how dedicated he is to this Porsche program this year and just how badly he wants that Le Mans win.
Yeah, he's got half a chance. They're in the pro class, but there are far fewer cars in that category than in an absolutely shocker Pro-Am class, GTE Am class. 20 cars, I think, in that. August, of course, for the 24-hour Les Arts Classic from the Circuit de Les Arts at the side of the all covered for you live and free via Agony Radio Le Mans. Looking forward very much to seeing that at this time of the year. September last year was a slightly different atmosphere, limited number of fans available, fans being allowed rather into the circuit this year. Cooper McNeil had a couple of little goals to get past the number 16 Wright Motorsport Porsche, and Trent Hindman in his own battle with Jeff Kingsley ahead of him in the mostly orange colours racing Acura NSX GT3, the number 76 car. Now Cooper comes under the drive over bridge, the entry bridge, down the final corner, the right-handed diving turn, runs out on the serrated curve, it's the GRT Grasser Racing Team Lamborghini, and Misha Goldberg gets the job done down the inside. Not that easy, Jeremy, to pass the GT3 cars, because the advantage that the GT Le Mans cars is not actually in a straight line. They're a bit more draggy, they've got a bit more downforce, and there's not that many places that they can exploit that extra downforce and braking availability.
No, you're absolutely right, and you'll keep an eye on that process. He made sure he didn't get. It was very easy to make contact with a couple of cars where he tried to pass them in a downward turn. It was, as you said, Trent Hinman, I think, he was very sensible, got out of the lane, realised that his back at this point to get the second or third, not going to make that much difference. Certainly, that the WeatherTech push team, they could push to close the gap back up to the two Corvettes, who've now about 16 seconds out in front. But we know that Chamonix, even though this is his first time here, he's going to be quick. He's a fast learner, and he'll be, I think, able to run with the Corvettes, even maybe up close to him.
And the key point there, Jeremy, Mathieu Chamonix, Porsche driver, Porsche junior driver in the past, and Porsche supporting driver, and what he knows is that car. He knows that. He might not know this circuit, but he knows the car very well indeed. In GT Daytona, in 5th position, Robbie Foley at the moment, in that battle with Madison Snow from Paul Racing for the Lamborghini. What this weekend is the Tacos Motorsport BMW M6 GT3. It is a team tradition that after a victory they head out for Mexican food, for tacos, and Will Turner, ever the one to lighten everybody's weekend. It's got the taco, the illuminated taco sign above the pits, and instead of Turner on the side, which it normally has, in exactly the same type of base, he has tacos instead. Shea has been doing her research, and apparently there are a couple of decent taquerias around this area of the Northeast.
Well, I've had my spies out testing the best in this realm of the world, but the good news for Will Turner and his boys and girls is that they are very much local, so it's not too far of a drive back to their hometown favorite taco spot. But on that taco board, at the middle of the night shift at Daytona, when that's illuminating, that's when you start to get a bit delusional and you start to picture tacos, and it hits you in the sweet spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Will Turner and the guys, that a doubled weekend for them. It's right motorsport, John Michael guys racing in both the Michelin Pilot Challenge and the WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, where at the moment Jordan Taylor has a 2.5 second lead on his team car. It's the number 2, the second place car, the number 4 Corvette. 2.4 seconds. Yellow from grey. Cooper McNeil having dropped to 18 seconds further back. He's way through traffic at the moment. GTT, Roman De Angelis, Hartnett Racing, Aston Martin. The blue, number 23, from the bright yellow Lexus, yellow and black, almost like a Bumblebee. Vassar Sullivan, Aaron Telitz in the 14. Richard Highstand for Audi in the car barn. Autosport machine in third. Decent battle going on a little bit further down with Misha Goik-Burkford, GRT Grasser Racing Team in behind that. The Acura pair of Till Bechtelsheimer for Gradient, who's ahead of the Compass Racing 76, the orange, and then Trent Hinman right in there as well for Sport in the blue, number 16. Those cars battling it out for what is 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th in GT Daytona, in a championship that is far from settling into any kind of rhythm this year. Jeremy, you mentioned earlier on how many people have taken victories, how many cars have taken victories. We've not had the same driver on pole position in GT Daytona at all through any of the races this year. So very much still all to play for the main championship and the sprint championship here in the WeatherTech SportsCar Championship for 2021.
Yeah, it is super tight there. for anything else, but in the WeatherTech Sprint Cup for GTD, this man, Roman DeAndres, his regular co-driver for Boston, they lead the points coming into this weekend and are looking to extend that lead in a little bit over a second or so, one and a half seconds. That's actually the biggest gap there's been between the first and second place cars throughout the 32 laps we've now completed for the GTD leaders. Aaron Tielitz in second place, highest hanging right midfield. Zachary Robichaud definitely closing in a little bit in the fourth position. So I think the Lexus of Tielitz perhaps is struggling a little bit with his side wheels. So he's still only 1.5 seconds back, but a little bit further back now. Frankie Montecalvo, leading earlier on. He's definitely, well, he definitely seems to be struggling. His last lap was 53.9, which is a full 1.3 seconds slower than his best lap of the race.
Misha Goldberg finds a first GRT Lamborghini. 54.014 not last time around, but the time before, because laps go so quickly here. By the time I see the green on the timing screen, they're already more than halfway around the next one. So feeling a little bit of pressure from behind from Till Bechtelsheimer in the 66 Gradient Racing Acura, and therefore picking up his pace, burning off the VP Racing fuel as well, of course, now, Jeremy, as we are half an hour or so, 30 minutes into this race. The balances of the cars will begin to change a little bit, and the drivers will be talking to their teams and finding out what the strategy is, and whether they want them to push now or whether they want them to save just a little bit more towards the pit stop window, which will be opening shortly.
Yeah, how are their tyres? The handling. Aaron Tielitz, he looks pretty comfortable there in that second place right now. This is the car that won last time, and then had pretty much a whole year's worth of bad luck towards the end of last season and the beginning of this. But you're super strong this year. This weekend is the fourth time in all of the races this year that the number 14 cars gained maximum points with its dedicated points qualifying session. That's the fastest car on a regular basis, but for one reason or another, they didn't put it all together and come away with the race win until the WeatherTech 240 last time out. And there, it's compounded even better. They won a 2 finish, and a 12 car right behind them. So they're on a bit of a roll right now. 2017 is black and yellow Lexus cars, and they're looking good again right now. Again, a long way to go. Still over 2 hours remaining in this race.
Sound great as well. Those V8s, just a beautiful rumble to them. Doesn't sound like they're having to work too hard. Well, not in the engine department. The backs are taut as well. Front engine car, in terms of its layout, if we talk about front, mid or rear, yeah, but it's front mid because it is pushed down as low as possible into the engine compartment and beyond it, so it doesn't look like your average Lexus street car. There's an awful lot of room in front of the engine block to where the slam panel is, and that's for weight distribution, of course. Get the engine down low, dry sucked, pushed back as far as possible, and that's why those cars in front of the field, like the Aston Martin, like the Lexus, BMW in fourth position, same idea. Yes, they're built on the street car that you can go to your local dealer and pull out onto the road. Yeah, but they're not like that when you hide them and take them out onto the street. Even the GT3 cars now, very sophisticated racing cars with aero-dependent bodywork and wings and spoilers. And the GT Le Mans, well, they're a step up again based on their road-going counterparts and having to share certain dimensions and body panels, etc. But an awful lot of work goes into the GT Le Mans cars. Ron Ferriol running in 12th position in GT Le Mans at the moment in the 88 Team Hardpoint EBM. And just 4 seconds away from Trent Hinman, who has just pulled away a wee bit in his attempt to catch Jeff Kingsley. He's only half a second behind him. Ferriol just being lapped by the leader. Not the pace I was expecting to see from Trent Hinman, to be honest. One place ahead of the 88 car, Joey.
Yeah, I think Kingsley just can't find a way past. I think that's the problem. And Trent has been hounding Jeff Kingsley's Compass Racing Acura throughout this race. 37 laps, he said, so far. He knows exactly what the rear end of that car looks like right now. He's been staring at it for the last 34 minutes. So it'll be a little bit frustrating for Trent. He wants to hand over that right to Patrick Long in a good position. He's just unable to make a pass. And right now, he's kind of stuck where he is. He's 11th place in the class. He's a fair way behind the leaders now.
Is this, Jeremy, a potential opportunity for Wright, who are not backwards in coming forwards? They'll take a chance to do something different on the pit stop strategy, take him out of that situation and try and give him some clear air?
Yes, but it's too early at this stage in the game, because you want to make sure you don't want to be making a pit stop until you've reached the minimum drive time. So we've still got another 10 minutes to go before that is 5 minutes minimum drive time in this race. So you don't want to be making a pit stop before then. So he's just going to hang on here, his Trent, and I'm sure for where he is, if another 76 car doesn't come in right away, then Hinman probably will.
Corvette's still leading, 3 seconds between the number 3 of Jordan Taylor, the yellow car, and the Paul drive grey car of Tommy Milner in second position then at the moment. Uncharacteristically, a failure at Watkins Glen, as we see the first of the GT Le Mans pit stoppers. We had Nick Tandy's car, didn't we, the Corvette, with a bit of a problem. We'll take the pit stop in a moment, but first let's take a Corvette update from our VP Racing fuel pit paddock reporter, Shea Adam.
Yesterday, lack of rear grip was a big issue for both of the Corvettes. They seem to have solved that problem today. Tommy Milner much happier with the way that the car is handling now. And Corvette Racing normally do a driver in the loop rig simulation. They did not do it for this track, so Lime Rock is much more of an unknown quantity. They had to actually look back on some data that they had from the C7R to get an idea for how the C8R would perform around Lime Rock, given that this is the debut for that car out of the track. But into the pits came Cooper McNeil. Out of the pits goes Matthew Johnson. Service is complete. And in is the number 4 Corvette. This is fuel and tires for the Corvette. No driver change. It was fuel and tires as well for the Porsche. So the first new set of Michelin tires going on to both of these cars for the race. It's just waiting on fuel. And then Tommy is going to continue driving round and round Lime Rock Park.
Is that 4 tyres for the Corvette?
I believe it was. I will text Brian Smith and find out.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeremy, go ahead. Leader in.
I think that bit's just to cover the Porsche coming in and making its driver change. They didn't want to be called out by a yellow flag that would cause the pits to be closed. Then when they did make this, they fell behind. So as soon as the Porsche came in, they've got a good lead right now. They're going to come onto that. They're coming in
into a lovely big gap, but out in front of John Bonnet, the 44 Lexus. He's gone through, he's already into turn 1 and Big Bend, and the 79 car, the next car on the road, is the Rob Ferriol Team Hardpoint Porsche, and that is coming up to West Bend now, as the 79 WeatherTech Porsche is on no-name straight, so he has got the opportunity to make a little bit of lap time, where conversely Tom Milner has dropped out and he's got a gaggle of GTD cars ahead of him. His teammate Jordan Taylor is right in the middle of the GT Daytonas, sitting in behind. In fact, he's just split those 2 cars and he's coming up on Zach Robichon now, who has got Richard Highstand in the carbon Audi right in front of him. It's all part of the calculations. For as clever and as good as the guys behind the wheel are, we have got some very, very big brains sitting on the pit wall doing the calculations and watching what our colleague Ryan Till always calls the dancing ants, which is the little tracker that we get from Alcavel on their live timing. And you can pick that up as well from the IMSA.com site. Always like to keep that up here in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre, as well as the timing screen, so that we can see what is going on and where those gaps are opening up. 2 hours still to go. Pit stops completed then for all of the GT Le Mans runners, and Jordan Taylor leads by 5 seconds over Tommy Milner in second. So 3 yellow Corvette from 4 grey Corvette, then the white, red and blue Matthew Jaminet now, only driver who has been swapped into those top 3 cars for the WeatherTech Racing Porsche. Still waiting for the first of the scheduled stops from GT Daytona, and it's 2.3 seconds now, the gap for Hartford Racing's Aston Martin, ahead of Aaron Thielitz in the Bumblebee Lexus, the number 14, which is high stand. Carbon Audi still in 3rd position. Here comes our leader up to the back of John Potter, in the back of Archangel Acura. Remember, has already been down the pit lane to serve a penalty. Now, what can Matthew Jaminet do about the Corvettes? Well, the first thing he can do is set the fastest lap of the race, which he's done on his second flying lap out of the pits in the WeatherTech Porsche. So that now is going to get the attention, Jeremy Shaw, of the Corvette racing team, and particularly of Tom Milner. As John Potter goes down a lap by the leader in his class now, not just off the lead lap in the race, as the 23 Hartford Racing Aston has now gone by. So the Corvettes know they've got a game on now, Jeremy. They've got a battle on their hands, with Jaminet beginning the charge in the Porsche.
Yeah, very much so, John, and that lap by Jaminet is very, very ominous for the Chevrolets. 51.010 for Matthew Jaminet. Tom Milton's just responded on the first 7,051. Fastest time for the race leader is at 51.3. So, you know, they seem to be pretty closely matched, but Jaminet is certainly getting a hurry on there in the number 79 cars. We see the first of the pit stops in GTD, and it is indeed Trent Hinman, just over 41 minutes in the box. And
we've already actually had Madison Snow in and out as well, Shea Adam. Can you give us an update on that in this VP Racing Fuel Pit Paddock report, also on the 2 Corvettes stuff?
It was 4 tires for both of the Corvettes. They have them, they might as well use them. And it was fuel and tires for the number 1 Madison Snow staying aboard the Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini. And I believe, and yes, it was Trent Hinman staying aboard the number 16 Bright Motorsport Porsche as well. If you've got good first drivers, good enough to turn in the times, and to keep your second driver fresh for the end of this race, that could wind up being a big advantage, because the track temperature right now is 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and with the ambient being 91 and it being as humid out there as in Florida summer, it's going to be a big help to have a fresh driver at the end of this.
Thank you, Shea. And maybe a fresh set of Michelin rubber as well. Tyre allocations we said was too onerous this weekend, but still nice to have a set of stickers to go on at the end. Another fastest lap of the race, reset by Mathieu Jaminet, who has just done a 50.746, or around about half a second quicker than the leader. Race lap record pace, Jeremy?
In the GTLM, the lap record 50.75. We've got a new lap record there for Matthew Jaminet, 50.746 for the Frenchman. Not bad for his first time. He takes over that honour from Patrick Milo, who did that lap time 2 years ago, 50.757. He'll mark with an average speed 104.544 miles an hour.
Circuit is, and as there are, that's not hanging about out at all. So with under the 2 hours to go, let's give you a full field summary. We're about to start the GT, or we have indeed started the GT Daytona pit stop. So there's a couple of cars that are out of sequence. We'll start with GT Le Mans, where it's the two Corvettes who lead in our Mazda in-race update. 3 seconds between Jordan Taylor and Tom Milner. 3 from 4 with a charging Mathieu Jaminet. Having taken over the car now at the first pit stop and reset the fastest lap at least a couple of times. He's still, however, 33 seconds down on the leaders. That's 2/3 of a lap, isn't it? So even on the pit stops, they lost a little bit of time to the Corvettes. At the front of the GT Daytona field and our Mazda full race update. It is Heart of Racing's Aston Martin, Roman De Angelis, who has not stopped. There's only 3 GTDs who have been down the pit lane, and only 2 of those have had full service. So De Angelis in the 23 Heart of Racing Blue Aston Martin leads by 4.4 seconds from the yellow and black Vassar Sullivan Lexus of Aaron Tiedemann. And number 14 car is just half a second ahead of Richard Highstand, the car by currently. That is the Audi, which is crossing the line now, heading down into Big Ben. Richard Highstand then in second. Zach Robichon in the plaid Porsche from Pfaff Motorsport, the Canadian team, 4th position, and right in that battle for second, 3rd and 4th position. 5th position is Robbie Foley in the Turner Motorsport BMW. He's only 9/10 of a second further back. Frank Montecalvo has just pitted. Vassar Sullivan, as is Jeff Kingsley in the Compass Racing car. So Till Bechtelsheimer now 7th position. Madison Snow will go up to 8th position, as he was one of the, in fact he was the first to pit for regular service in the number 1 Lamborghini. Trent Hinman's just set the fastest lap of the GT Daytona race, so he will be climbing up through the field as well. And that's your Mazda in-race update of the whole field, as Shea Adam has Roman De Angelis and Aaron Tiedemann in from 1st and 2nd in GTD.
The engine bay though before sending back Zach down on the track. Fuel tires for the 14 Lexus as well as Aaron Felix is in. That is a 4-tire stop. Jack Cox from King Ross Gunn is taking over the aftermarket. Roman DeAngelis, great job out there. Way to lead from the first ever time doing that. Fuel and 4 tires for the Aston Martin as well. We've got Misha Goikhberg, the number 19 Grasser Racing Lamborghini. He's handing over to Frank Pereira, and Mario Farbacher now aboard the 76 Compass Racing Acura, and Cameron Legg is out in the 88 Hardpoint Team EBM Porsche. I was just slightly distracted. There's Richard Highstand pulls into the pit lane in the Audi for Carbon. Now we need John Potter to stay out at least 1 more lap after that drive-through. He is not yet met the minimum drive time. Has not yet pitted.
And that's because time spent in the pit lane shade doesn't count to your drive time. It's got to be outside of the pit lane, correct?
Correct on that, yes. If 4 tire stops, remember what I was going to say at this point as the service still goes on for Carbon, and they and Gradient are the 2 cars in the pit lane right now. The Gradient Acura, Till Bechtelsheimer done with his drive time, handing over to Mark Miller, who I guarantee you is doing rain dance because Mark loves it when it gets slippery out there.
He's getting quicker and quicker in that car, Mark Miller, as well. Genuine pace in that machine this weekend, so keep an eye on the number 66 of Gradient Racing. Meantime, quite a battle going on between Aston Martin and Ross Gunn and Madison Snow in the Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini. Now Madison's been in since the start of the race, and Ross Gunn has just got into that car, having taken it over from Roman De Angelis. So Madison absolutely in the groove. Opportunity here to make up a position. Remember, that was the leading car before the pit stop cycle began. And as it stands at the moment, it is still the leading car that has made its pit stops. Zachary Robichon for Pfaff and Robbie Foley for the BMW number 96, the M6 GT3. Those cars still to make their stop, so the effective battle for the lead in GT Daytona, Jeremy, is at Big Bend right now, and Madison Snow smells the top spot.
He does. Short for them, quick stop for them, just to gain some track positions. They are planning on splitting the length of the stints here as much as they can. So give Madison a good run here, and then they'll make their driver change later on. But certainly that's a big gain here in terms of time in comparison to the number 23 car that had pretty much a full stop last time round, because they have already made their driver change. So advantage overall here for number 23, but as we can see on the racetrack, the strategy has got the number 1 car right up with the erstwhile leader.
Correct, and Madison was, as I said, the first of the GT Daytona runners to stop and stopped some 6 laps before Roscoe took that car over. So a little less advantageous on his tyre life, but he's in the groove from the start and has been now in that car since the green flag dropped, whereas Ross, as I said, has just jumped in. We mentioned that Zachary Robichon had to stop the back. Motorsport is in the pit lane now. Robbie Foley, the blue and yellow number 96 BMW takes the lead. Shea Adam is watching the stop down in pit lane.
Zach hands over to Larry as it is time for Lawrence Vantor to go to work. He's gotten his first ever pole position in IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship at this track. He is yet to get a win here, though, and he would love to help back get their second consecutive GTD win at Lime Rock Park, having gotten their first team win here in 2019. Larry is out. He's finished second twice, looking to do one better.
Adam with that VP Racing Fuel Pit and paddock report. If you're just joining us, welcome along. IMSA Radio, XM202 in the US, around the world on RS2, part of the radio show within the network, and of course in sound vision at IMSARadio.com as well. More pit stops. We'll get to Jeremy Shaw in just a second. It's Turner this time, Shea, who are down on the lane.
Then Robbie Foley getting out of his second race car of the day, and over to Bill Aberlin driving his second race car of the day. Oh, hang on a second, we've seen this before. Both of them are very familiar with Lime Rock Park. Bill Aberlin last getting a win in IMSA at Lime Rock Park when Robbie was 4 years old. I waited until Bill got in the car and could set up to sit at 4 tires and fuel for the BMW, and Bill is told to go, try and make up as many positions as he can.
The thing is, Bill's not getting, any less competitive. He's just getting better with age. History means nothing to him, nothing at all. All he's worried about is the next race, not the last one, or what the stats say. He just wants to go out and win every race. Jeremy, I think you were going to make a point about Trent Hindman.
We talked about the fact he's been held up by trailer cars and stuff behind the number 76 car over through his first stint. Well, once released, he has set in consecutive laps and set new fastest laps in the GTD class. And it's now Mario Farmacher who's that car. So they did make the driver change, did they? At that first stop.
For Compass.
So it's
for the Compass Acura, the 76 car. Yes.
Yeah, because it's on the same team. Yeah, sorry about that. I confused myself. But yeah, so once released, Trent has set the class in GTD, or it had done before to 8, that has now been reset by Mario Farnbacher in the Audi for Compass Racing. But Trent Hindman now taking advantage of that better track position. He's now right up behind Jeff Westphal in number 39 Audi. That was the car which was very nice to be in the third position through the opening stint.
Yeah, and things are just starting to close up the head of the field as well. The gap came down a couple of laps ago to about a second. It's gone out again to 1.4 seconds, but Jordan Taylor and Tom Milner are as close together as they have been for some time at the front of the field. This is endurance racing. This is the tight bull ring that is Lime Rock Park. The traffic given, the traffic taken away. We've said that many times before over these airwaves, so we'll keep an eye on that. Chamonix, after his candle burned very brightly early on, 50.746 his fastest lap, 50.794 last time around, against 51.9 for the leader and a 51.5 for second place. So he's still here and there taking some time out of the two Corvettes, but he's still almost 30 seconds behind the pair of them. Now what's interesting there is that his gap to the second place, Tom Milner car, maybe just closed in a little bit, but Tom has closed in on Jordan Taylor. So in fact, Chamonix in the WeatherTech Racing Porsche is closer to the front of the field than when he came out on his stint, but he's still pretty much a similar gap from the first Corvette that he's going to come up against. They're crossing the line right now on the San Posi Straight, and to give you some idea, the 79 Porsche is on the no-name straight and now coming into the uphill with a couple of GT Daytona cars ahead, including the number 14 that is now driven by Jack Hawksworth. That's third place. Madison Snow is a second further up the road in second place, and he's now dropped away by 2 seconds to Ross Gunn, who's dialed in himself and more importantly the Michelin Pilot racing tyres on the Aston Martin Vantage from Harton Racing team, got them up to tempered pressure and has resumed at the head of the field, and in fact just done that car's fastest lap of the race of 52.909 last time around. It's Mario Farbacher, by the way. No, it's not. It's from Pereira, by the way, who's got the GT Daytona fastest lap at a 52.4. And Shea Adam listening into the Corvette radio with some ominous news on the weather front.
Jordan Taylor is reporting a couple of raindrops on his windshield every now and then when he goes around the track. Now, I just checked the weather radar. There is no cell over top of the track right now, but there is a very, very, very big ominous one just to the south of the track, between Kent and Torrington. If you're local to the area, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's about where it is right now.
Keep an eye on that. IMSA absolutely assiduous about how they manage potential weather issues. There's various levels of weather that we talk about. On the no-name straight now, WeatherTech Porsche on GT Daytona leader. WeatherTech Porsche wins that one in the hands of Mathieu Chamonix, just maybe going a little bit wide through the first right-handed part, flouting the raised curb with the left front. Don't want to do that too many times around here. Yeah, definitely a spot or two on the windscreen and on the camera on the Corvette of the race. At this point though, Jeremy, the track is dry, the Michelins are hot. That is not affecting performance at all, those odd raindrops that Jordan is talking about, but he's mentioning that to the pits not because he's worried about that, he's just telling them what's going on out there.
Yeah, just keeping them informed, that's exactly right, and they'll be looking at the weather radar as well. They're looking out behind the pit lane to see where that weather is coming from, and whether or not it will be a factor in a little while. Certainly, mostly there's some honest clouds around. It's pretty good at the moment. Certainly it's a lot better than the radar did earlier on today, that's for sure. So hopefully we'll keep on this way. We're just about coming up into this 2 hours and 40-minute race, and it's interesting to see how things are settling down. With that call by Paul Bell Racing to make that early stop to number 1 car to go about up into second place in the class. They're on a completely different strategy, pretty much everybody else in GTD is paying off right now. I don't think Madison can quite stay with what's going at this stage. Now Jack Hawksworth, kind of looking for a way past so he can chase the Aston Martin, the number 14 Lexus that he's driving currently. The Englishman, Jack Hawksworth, or 2 Englishmen, first and third, then Ross Gunn and Jack Hawksworth the first and third.
Jeremy Shaw with me, John Heidel in the Hackney Global Broadcaster Centre. So just pausing for a moment. Exceedingly darker at West Bend, but I think that is just the fact that the headlights on the leading Aston Martin GT Daytona are shining out just a wee bit more, but there is threatening cumulus nimbus in the distance towards the west end of the racetrack. At the moment, not bothering Ross Gunn, the young Aston Martin supported driver, works driver, who has been quite frankly outstanding, Jeremy, since he joined the ranks of IMSA drivers, settled into the floor very well indeed for Heart of Racing, and has been a real asset to them in that performance that we were talking about earlier on in the race.
Yeah, I think the quality of the drivers in GTD is really good right now. I mean, yeah, many of these drivers it kind of makes me jump to eventually. We just think we look forward even more to next year, where we're going to have the pro element in GTD. I kind of like it. I hope there's no sort of tweaking around. It gives anybody an opportunity to match themselves up against the factory drivers. I love that aspect. That's one thing I think it missed in the World Endurance Championship, where I think the GT LM cars are the GT
there can be an iteration back. There need to be an iteration back, but to be honest, there hasn't been any new versions of the cars at the front of the field, so everybody's on the same equipment now. The last new car was the RSR 19, and everybody's got those now. The next last new car is the Corvette C8R. There aren't any in privateer hands for that. So that when the pro drivers are in their armed cars, then there's no reason why they can't be going just as quick as the pro cars, which is the point you were getting to, isn't it? In qualifying, there's very little between them. I'm very interested to see the race tomorrow at Monza. Actually, 6-hour race tomorrow at Monza, because there's an awful lot of wild cards, if you like, in that, getting ready for Le Mans. 1 or 2 extra drivers being drafted in the GT Le Mans category, the AM category of the GTE at Le Mans is, along with LMP2, the most numerate, and so there are people who are going to be there. Congratulations to Ben Keating, who took pole position earlier on today. Texan who we know very well from his time here in the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. And 40 minutes just under to go, so just under 100 minutes of racing here at the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship at the Northeast Grand Prix. Let's take another Mazda in-race update. We'll start with GTD this time. Ross Gunn for Aston Martin and for Heart of Racing Team by 2.3 seconds in that dark blue number 23 Vantage. From now, Madison Snow, who they're playing a slightly different tactic again. Not by much, 5 or 6 laps is only the difference. When they made their first pit stop, Madison will get out at the next pit stop and hand over to Brian Sellers, that red, white, black Lamborghini Huracan for Paul Miller Racing, the number 2, running second. And just on a second ahead of Jack Hawksworth for Vassar Sullivan in 3rd position. That Lexus number 14 is 12 seconds ahead of Lawrence Van Toner, who has that's the plaid coloured Porsche that runs in 4th position, and has just half a second on Bill Oberlin in the yellow and blue Turner Motorsports BMW M6 number 96. He's got 3 seconds on the dark grey and green Jeff Westphal driven carbon with Peregrine Racing Audi number 39. That's your top 6. John Potter's pitted. She'll keep an eye on that. He's pitted from 13 in the Acura, the white Acura number 44. The Corvettes still have gone back out to 3.7 seconds now between Jordan Taylor and Tommy Milner. 3 from 4, yellow from dark grey. And Mathieu Jaminet has closed in to just under 26 seconds on Tom Milner, but he's dropped back by a couple of seconds from Jordan Taylor, so he's still round about half a minute away from the lead, frustratingly, for Mathieu Jaminet. That's how it stands then, with an hour and 36 minutes to go on your Mazda in-race update. Shea has a VP Racing Fuel pit report for me.
Mega job from John Potter to stay out there more than an hour in the opening stint. He did have to do that drive-through penalty for the start of the race for starting on the wrong tire, so that takes what, about 19 seconds worth of drive time from John. But still, Andy Lally is now aboard the 44 Magnus with Archangel Racing Acura. Happy birthday, Matt Johnson, by the way. And one lap down. Andy's going to need a little bit of help or a caution to get that back. But we'll see what they can do now that Andy Lally, the guy who's tied with Patrick Long for the most wins at lap 8, new behind the wheel.
Thank you, Shea. Shea Adam, our VP Racing Fuel Pit Paddock reporter. Jeremy Shaw with me, John Hyde off the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. XM202 around the US and into Canada. If you are suitably equipped. By the way, every single WeatherTech SportsCar Championship race being carried again this year thanks to XM Sirius. Just the Sirius, just the XM rather channel this weekend. 202. We don't have a Sirius channel as well. There's an awful lot of sport going on at the moment, and principally Tour de France. Of course, the airwaves. The final time trial, the day at the run at the Champs-Élysées tomorrow. Tadej Pogacar still in 3 of the 4 jerseys. Cavendish looks like he's has some record stage victories. Trust me, I'll be sitting watching that tomorrow afternoon European time. RS2, IMSA Radio, IMSARadio.com, and on IMSA TV as well. Glad to have your company. This one just simmering nicely as we are not even halfway through the race just yet. Starting to see a little bit more intensity and intent from some of the drivers. Phil Oberlin now right with Lawrence Van Tor. This is the battle for 4th in GTD. They are going down the no-name straight at the moment, and they are about 10 seconds away from a podium position right now. Phil Oberlin needs no excuse, Jeremy Shaw, to have a race with anybody. He could probably find a race on an empty racetrack, to be quite honest.
Absolutely right, and yeah, loving it right now. He's closed right in on the tail of Lawrence Van Tor. He's made up a little bit of a ground. Since around the pit stops. I think came out of the pits actually pretty a couple of seconds or so behind that number 9 car. The gap between the 9 and the 2 cars ahead of him was staying pretty stable around that 10 seconds. That's from 3rd to 4th. Roscoe has extended his lead now over Madison Snow to 5 seconds. Over the last 4 or 5 laps, it's gone up by an extra couple of seconds. Madison's staying ahead of Jack Holdsworth, and then a gap back from Holdsworth to about another 10 seconds. And Jeff Westphal, he's been edging a little bit closer in kind of a 39 to Bill Oberlin, and it's edging away now from Trent Hinman. He's the only starting driver, I think, now, isn't he, who's still at the wheel of a GTD car.
Agreed. A little bit of strategy still playing out. Madison Snow on his 30th lap since he's in the pits. Roscoe only on his 24th. Talk about track position in our Porsche Keys to Race, and the Paul Miller Racing team played that one perfectly. Took a little less VP Racing fuel on when they were in at their first pit stop at the end of lap number 45. Sent Madison Snow out. Turned him from being in and around the top 6. Remember, he'd been shuffled back a couple of places when he was fighting for 4th. Came out, 2nd position, challenging for the lead. Brian Sellers still to come in that car. As far as the front of the field, is concerned. Still a wee while to go before I expect to see any of the leading runners. It was the WeatherTech Porsche that came in first, and if it follows the same, that'll be about 5 laps from now, so about 5 minutes. Let's think of it that way. Whereas it's probably 6 or 7 minutes. 6 minutes for the Corvette, number 4, and for the leader, 7 minutes for Jordan Taylor. If they go all the way to the end of their fuel stint, and that's what Jeremy and I were musing about earlier on, whether it would be fuel dependent or tyre dependent. But at the front of the field, Jeremy, Jordan Taylor and Tommy Milner are actually, and in fact Mathieu Jaminet, their pace now is pretty good.
Yeah, it is. You know, they're all running very similar lap times, the leaders. You know, the gap from the second for quite a while after the pit stops, it was around about 33 seconds. You talked about a while ago, it came down to about 25, where it has pretty much stabilised now for the last 10 laps or so. So everything is comfortable right now for the two Corvettes. There's 24.5, 25 seconds, but a full course caution will turn everything on its head, and that's what the Porsche team now, the WeatherTech will really do with any time.
Yeah, they ran in that first stint. The Porsche ran 42 minutes. At the moment they've been running 32 minutes. Was suggesting some of that would have been formation laps, though. So yeah, they can. So what we're looking at now is dividing up the 90 minutes that we've got left. Well, to be honest, they can go on any time from now. They can come in and do it on 2 more pit stops, can't they? So the next one and 1 more, because they can easily do 2 45-minute stints from here for the GTDs. So it's a question of whether WeatherTech force the issue here, Jeremy, and say, right, well, we're not gaining on you, so let's jump right now and throw Jaminet into the pits with 90 minutes left to go. 45 minutes and 45 minutes, and what are you guys going to do? And really, Corvette would have to cover at that point, as they did at the first pit stop when Cooper McNeil came in.
Indeed, they certainly have to cover it with at least one of the cars. The question is, do they want to keep the two Corvettes on the same strategy to continue to battle against each other kind of out on the racetrack, or do they want to put them on different strategies? All put on different strategies, which would be interesting to see. You talked about a while ago that the gap between the two had gone out to about as much as 4 seconds, a little bit more actually, after around the pit stops. Came all the way down as little as 1.3 seconds, and now it's back out to almost 5 between the two Corvettes. That 82 an hour and 12 minutes elapsed in this race.
Adam is keeping a close eye on what's going on at Corvette Racing in terms of their strategy. Shay, what are you hearing?
They're not necessarily looking at the Porsche, and they're not necessarily looking at racing each other. They're still learning about this C8R. The rear end issue that they seemed to have yesterday in terms of a lack of grip has reappeared as the tires have burned off. So perhaps they come in sooner than they had expected to put a new set of tires on the car, because they can at this stage. But the wind has massively picked up in the pit lane, and if you look at the radar, there's a lot of little green blobs all around all of a sudden. It could be about downpour.
Is that just the 4 car that's struggling with rear grip, or is it both of the cars, the 3 Corvette and the 4 Corvette?
Tommy Milner is being more vocal about it on the radio, I can tell you that.
Okay, understood. And that goes back to what we were talking about, Jeremy, about the tyre performance perhaps being the determining factor rather than running to a full tank of fuel. Well, they've got into the window now where they can do 43-minute stints, which should be fairly manageable for them. So in that respect, from a racing point of view, they've weathered the storm, even if the weather hasn't weathered the storm yet. But you see what I mean there? That they are looking at different scenarios between those two cars.
They are, and just looking at the lap times of these now, major track issues that 53.3 last time around for the leading car, 52.5 for Milner in second position. But their fastest laps, 51, low 51s, or in Porsche's case, 50.7. So every time definition is an issue here, they're not as quick as they were on the first start, so of course that's what we would expect. And it's going to be interesting to see now. You're right, it's about the same sort of time as the laps. See if they made their first pit stop. So are they going to make? When are they going to make the pit stop? It's going to be interesting to see. I would imagine it will be quite soon now. Yeah.
Particularly if they feel they're potentially losing performance. Hello to Redbirds resident, listening and watching the onboards at IMSA Radio. Thank you, Redbirds. Hope you're well. You're enjoying what you're seeing at the moment. Still an hour and 25 minutes to go. This has been high-speed chess of the finest order. Regulars, you know that Jeremy and I like long green flag runs. Yes, I've said it, so it will be my fault. But what we're seeing here is the tiny little differences in performance between the drivers, between the cars. This is all good data for IMSA as well, and their data bank. And Ross Gunn still leads by 2.7 seconds to Madison Snow. Aston Martin to Lamborghini, 23 from 1. Hawksworth not closing in. Lost a couple of tenths last time around in the Vassar Sullivan Lexus. He's a couple of seconds further back. Bill Auberlin's still the one that's pushing. He's been half a second, 6 tenths off the back of Lawrence Vanthoor since those two came out of the pits, 25 minutes and more ago. But at the moment, he's not been able to put any kind of move onto the car ahead of them. They've got the WeatherTech Porsche in behind them. They're on their no-name straight at the moment. And is this the opportunity with the faster GT Le Mans car coming through up the uphill? Oh, big clout on the curb by Mathieu Jamanet on the right front Michelin. He goes down the inside of West Bend, and Auberlin had to give way there, and that's cost him time to the back of the red and silver, the plaid number 9 Fab Porsche. Starting to darken up a little bit. Track temperature down to 34 Celsius, still 30 in the air. That's 93 Fahrenheit on the track, 86 in the air. 66% humidity for the moment. Those spots of rain reported 5 minutes or so ago, maybe a little more, from Jordan Taylor at the head of the field. They've not intensified. And we have an hour and 23 minutes to go. Who jumps first at the front of the field? We're coming down to some very important, potentially green flag pit stops. Remember our Porsche keys to the race. Got to get the pit stops right. Can't afford mistakes, can't afford speeding. And get that tyre strategy right as well to hold on to your track position. We'll recap those Porsche keys to the race later on. And in about an hour and a half's time, we'll be into Michelin post-race tech. And take your questions, points arising and observations, please, at IMSA Radio. Use the hashtag MichelinPRT. You drive the editorial agenda on the original listener intervention show. Shea Adam with news from Corvette and pit outs.
Just waiting to see that number 3 diving into the pit lane, because the crew is up on the wall, and so is the King of Spain. Antonio Garcia has raced the line many, many times before. he has yet to get a win here at this track. Kind of hard to believe. Second in 2012, 2016, 2018. So clearly the even years, he finished second. The odd one, to get a win. But it looks like it's going to be fuel and 4-sticker Michelins for that number 3 Corvette. Jordan Taylor's day is done.
That's going to give him about 2 40-minute stints for Antonio Garcia, there or thereabouts. That's eminently achievable on fuel. So they've gone long into the race, Jeremy, at Corvette, and looks like WeatherTech Porsche are shadowing them on that, and they're going to have 2 very nicely manageable stints at the end of the race for Antonio Garcia in that leading number 3 yellow Corvette.
Yeah, so hour and 20 minutes remaining, just about exactly halfway through this race now then. And you just summed up the GT-LM battle perfectly. It is the number 79 car that blinks first. So lap 90, we see the number 79 car, the Porsche, into the pit lane. The first stint was, how long, 36 minutes for the first stint. So that means the second stint has been, what, 45 minutes, which is a bit longer than that. Yeah, about 45 minutes. So there is the WeatherTech Porsche. Serves its slot, but it comes in just ahead of the, once again, as we saw last time, 4 car in, 1 lap after number 79. Again, doesn't want to be caught out by caution. And I was expecting to see number 3 car in on the next lap as well.
Shit.
Number 4 Corvette is into the pit lane ahead of the number 3, so they're leaving Antonio up on the wall for quite a bit longer. But that is Nick Tandy. Number 4 Corvette has only ever finished 4th at Lime Rock Park. We've done that back in 2019, so never even been on the podium. That's going to change today. Does the 4 car get out ahead of the 3? It does.
Oh, wow.
Leading GTLM.
Wow, so that is a turnaround. That's in and out laps, and they didn't have to put a full fuel load in to get it to the end on one more pit stop. So there's our Porsche keys to the race, track position. Number 1 Porsche keys to the race, and Chevrolet and Corvette Racing know that as well. So excellent stuff there. Nick Tandy taking over. Then ahead and waiting for the 3 to pit. So Tandy in the car, waiting for it to come in, and it comes in now. Antonio Garcia. So that lap for Jordan Taylor, really very important indeed, Shea Adam. And now you can call the pit stop. I'll tell you where Tandy is. He's coming out of Big Bend right now as the leader comes to his pit stall.
Tandy is going to have to push like that to try and get ahead, because Antonio Garcia wants to win, possibly more than anyone else except for Nick Tandy. They are doing fuel and 4 Michelin tires as Antonio gets belted in to the car with the assistance of a driver change assistant. Corvette Racing has utilized one of those for basically their entire existence. Some of the teams up and down the pit lane prefer to do the driver change assistant.
Tandy at West Bend.
There was a windshield tear off for Garcia as well, so we'll be able to see he's down, he's rolling, and he's out. Where's Tandy?
Only just coming onto the San Posey straight, so that hasn't worked the way they wanted to. And Nick Tandy then is in full chase mode, desperately disappointed. I talked to him after Watkins Glen, did a special feature programme to celebrate the first 100 victories of Joe Tandy Racing, being in existence for 15 years. NCR taken over by Nick, and had a really good chat with him. It's available to download by radiolemont.com. Great reminiscences about his brother, who was a very tidy driver himself, excellent engineer. Both started on short oval racing, middle stocks as it was in the UK.
The Joe actually came out to California to look at a Formula 4 2000 car at the time. Very interested in perhaps running that. Just a super cool guy, really talented even now becoming a tragic loss of course for the family and motorsporting journey.
Indeed so. They've done well to keep Joe Tandy Racing running for 15 years. It's not always been easy in national sport in the UK. As I say, clocked up their 100th victory a little bit earlier on this month. Back in the last month actually, I think they had to do it twice. Thought they'd won and then lost it in post-race tech and then had to do it again. Yeah, absolutely. But there's a story behind that as well. Listen to the download, you'll enjoy it. It's Nick and I just having a chat about it, about the Formula 4 Festival, the races. He did win the races, he should have won the races. He didn't win, but then did win. And it's good stories about the early days. And it's available to download or listen on demand from radiolemans.com in the features section, or just search Joe Tandy Racing. A lot of stuff on there I've got done actually. Revisited our land speed record programme for a little bit of research. Paul Lord Racing, the land speed record, and that was a very long time ago now, and I've completely forgotten many of the details about that. Got a long road trip going, get on there, pick out a few little gems, download, and listen, it's all free. Hour and 15 minutes still to go. Garcia from Tandy, it's 9 seconds now. Chamonix is still 30 seconds away from the lead, now only 20 seconds away from second.
First and second, quite double, but not far off it between number 3 and number 4 car there. So Antonio Garcia right on the case of that last lap around. So Tandy certainly got his work cut out. He was going to catch up with his teammates, and with the gap from second to third, it was around about 25 seconds before ran a pit stop. So Sergio is now down to under 20.
Yeah, you're spot on, Jeremy. It did go out to nearly 10 seconds on that first lap when the pit stops had gone. All the time, not that lap. 4 tenths better for Garcia. Nick Tandy, of course, not been here in a Corvette, but you could also say that Antonio Garcia's not been here in this Corvette, Jeremy. C8R making its debut here at Live Rock Park.
Yeah, absolutely right, and Antonio's, at least he knows the track in this sort of a car for his teammate Jordan Taylor. Last time he was here was 2013 in a very different car, in the DP, the Burnside car for his father's team. Clinched the championship on that date back in 2013. This is the final round of the championship in the old Rolex team, the Rolex series back then. So Jordan Taylor, he's the star of the car in pole position. He pulled out a comfortable lead during the first stint. He's handed over to Antonio Garcia, who has every intention of completing the job. That's the car that leads the championship this season, and they have won about 3 of the total of 5 races. The Detroit was an exhibition racing that was not running for championship points. In the Corvettes in just
full course yellow, Jeremy, and this is a weather yellow. This is a weather yellow. This is for lightning in the area. An hour and 13 minutes to go. This is not for rainfall. This is for weather in the area. So if you are hearing me at the track, it's time to seek some shelter with weather in the area. As I said, IMSA are very safety conscious for our volunteers, for those of you who are trackside watching with us this afternoon, and of course for the teams themselves. So yellow flag at the moment for weather in the area. Shea Adam is keeping an eye on the updates.
A lot of weather south of the track. There's a big cell with red in it that's currently southwest of Cornwall. Should be moving through within about an hour. We might run out of time on this race.
Yeah, and there is a curfew here because of the noise statutes, and that is a hard finishing time. We'll keep an eye on that. So, Jeremy, let's take a rundown of what we have at the front of the field. It's Corvettes 3 and 4 in first and second. Forget the gaps now. This is going to pull Mathieu Jaminet, who was 30 seconds behind, right in. It'll pull Nick Tandy right in. Ross Gunn and Harter Racing Team, the Aston Martin leading in GT Daytona from Paul Miller Racing's number 1 Lamborghini Huracan, and Jax Hawksworth is in the 14 Lexus for Vassar Sullivan in third place. 4th Pfaff Motorsport number 9 Porsche. 5th at Turner Motorsport. Red flag. I didn't want to say that, but if we've got a weather hold or a weather warning, then going to yellow is normally a precursor to going to red, and that has indeed been the case. So the cars will come down into the pit lane and park in the fast lane. So the race clock will continue to run, at least for the moment. If there's any change in that, I'll let you know. Shay, I think I'm right in saying you told me it was a hard 6 p.m. Engines off here at Lime Rock Park.
Yes,
yeah.
Which is why every session that we have is scheduled to end at 5:55, so there is a window built in. But yeah, no race engines after 6 p.m. and before. I believe on normal situations it's 10 a.m., but for race day it's 9 a.m.
Okay.
And then no race engines at all on Sunday.
Correct. Now that's been a statute for a very long time here at Lime Rock Park. That was, I think, in the late 1950s, but it did allow racing on Fridays and Saturdays and testing on Tuesdays, which that statute, which was enacted by the Episcopal Church just across the road, that stands to this day. It's kept the racing here, which is good, and everybody knows about it and works to it. So the clock still counting down, Jeremy. A slight frustration, I'm sure, for Corvette Racing, who've lost half a minute's lead.
Yes, absolutely. The gap between the second and place car of Nick Tandy and Mathieu Jaminet come down below 20 seconds for the first time in a long time. But now, assuming we are able to take the restart there, they're going to be right together. It's going to be a really interesting final stage of this race. Of course, we had a weather stoppage. It was the last race, wasn't it? The short race at Watkins Glen.
Yeah.
Lures it to one, to be honest. But this is 2 in a row, which is most unfortunate. This kind of part of the world, and we went green with about 35 minutes remaining at Watkins Glen last time out. So hopefully we can do the same. Now, if there has been a lightning strike in the area, I think it's pretty much a mandatory 30-minute stop. So that's presumably why we have gone to the red here. If that is the case, then potentially we could get underway again with a half an hour or so remaining. And if that was the case, I think the GTLM cars could get to the end from there. GTD, however, would be fairly interesting.
Well, that's
pretty much most of them are going to need another stop.
Well, that's very interesting because all the GTD cars have been out there for over 40 laps. So they're not a million miles. They wouldn't have been a million miles from coming in, Jeremy. So, yeah, I think you're right. Andy Lally, the only car who is better off than that. He's been out there for 27 laps. He did 67, or that car did 67 in its first elongated stint, or that long stint. So probably about 20 laps for the Aston of Harter Racing. A little bit, probably 15 for Paul Miller. 20 laps or so for Vassar Sullivan and Faf, and a couple of others as well. But that's going to make things very interesting indeed at the front of the field. Shea, Adam, what are you hearing from race control?
At least 30 minutes before this resumption will kick into place, but the problem is that the storm that is rolling in and heading toward the track, even if it's not going to hit the track necessarily, full of lightning, and it's going to pass relatively close by, and it is a large storm. So the weather radar that I am using says for at least the next 90 minutes, this kind of weather will continue within the area, and there's only an hour and 5 minutes, 65 minutes left on the clock.
Yes, good point. And we've still got a couple of drivers, Shea, who still need to pit to drive. They haven't been in the car.
Yes, Trent Hinman and Madison Snow have been car hogs so far. Patrick Long, who has 4 wins at Lime Rock Park, has yet to drive the 16 Wright Motorsport Porsche. And Brian Sellers has been busy sitting on the box and talking strategy with Lars and Mitchell instead of actually driving the car. So he too needs to get in on the #1 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini.
So red flag at Lime Rock Park. And I know that we're still out on the PA thanks to our technical support there from Tyler Norling and the team and everyone at Lime Rock Park. So be aware, ladies and gentlemen, if you are trackside at the moment, there is weather in the area, and we'll keep you updated with that. We are under a weather hold here at the moment, and as soon as we get any further information, we will let you know. An hour and 5 minutes on the clock. The clock continues to count down, and this is well, pretty much all of the, well, it depends when we go back, Jeremy, but pretty much all of the GTDs will have to come in for a stop, and at least 2 there that we mentioned with Pat Long and Madison Snow not yet being in the cars, so they will have to come along pit lane at some stage.
Well, that's going to be a problem for them, because it's unlikely there's going to be 45 minutes remaining in the race when we go back to green. In fact, there won't be 45 minutes left in the race, so that is going to be a problem for them, and I think because of it, they're going to be put to the back of the field wherever they finish. I think I'm right in saying that. I hate to say it, but well, that's going to be the rule.
Drive time will be adjusted, Shea, will it not be, if there's a red?
Yeah, anytime there's a red flag, the minimum drive time is adjusted for both of the parties involved. And if the second driver hasn't yet gotten into the car, but there was well more than enough the minimum time to get into the car when the red flag came out, race control does account for that.
Thank you, Shea. It also means our camera operators will be leaving their posts as well, and we thank them and everyone on the marshals, flag post, etc. also doing the same, always doing a cracking job right around the circuit. And just hearing from our colleagues in the PA booth, they are making the official announcements now here at Lime Rock Park. So if you're joining us now on XM202 or around the world on RS2 IMSA Radio, we are under red flag conditions for weather in the area. Lightning in the area has stopped the WeatherTech SportsCar Championship Northeast Grand Prix with just over an hour to go. Jeremy Shaw, shame that, because that was building up quite nicely, but listen, I say that because I'm disappointed. There's no criticism at all implied there. This is a safety issue, but that race was going along rather nicely.
Well, yes, certainly in GTD, but I think it was pretty much set in GTLM, but this is, assuming we get back to green, it's going to make it a lot more interesting in GTLM, that is for sure, because the fastest car is the Porsche that has set the fastest lap of the race, a new lap record for Mathieu Jaminet on his first time here at Lime Rock Park. And now, rather than being a long way behind the two Corvettes, he's going to be hot on their heels if and when we get the restart. So this is going to be really, really interesting in GTLM. In GTD, look, it was a great race in any case. And before we get back to green, we're going to have to do the pass arounds, because there were several cars that had been lapped by the overall leader but had not been lapped by the class leader in GTD. In terms of the race as it stands right now, we've got 5 cars in GTD, which numbers 23, 1, 14, 9 and 96 all on the lead lap, and everybody else a lap behind. But there's several of those cars behind will get the wave around and we'll be able to rejoin the back of the field in GTD before we get going again.
Stay with us here on IMSA Radio. We'll try and grab a couple of interviews. The irony, of course, is that the sun has just come back out. We'll try and get hold. We're trying to get hold of a couple of drivers down at the pit lane area at the moment, and those drivers who have already got out of their cars, I know are listening to us, so keep an eye on your phones and your texts, please, all drivers. And our VP Racing Fuel pit paddock reporter Shea Adam will be trying to get in touch with you so that we can have a quick chat. 1 hour still to go and the clock remains running here at Lime Rock Park for the Northeast Grand Prix. Shea Adam can bring us some news from the pit and paddock in this VP Racing Fuel report.
I believe that Tommy Milner is listening in. Hey Tommy, you got us?
Hey Shea, yep, I hear you.
How's it been going so far?
It's been better. We've had a bit of a rough there first couple stints with some of the traffic. So I think the car is a little bit skewed from the contact I had with the BMW, which isn't obviously ideal, but that's what we got for now. So hopefully this weather passes fairly quickly and we can go back racing and Nick can have some fun.
Tommy, it's signed off in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Thanks for talking to us. We heard you were struggling with a bit of rear end grip there. Is that what you're talking about there? It was towards the end of your stint?
Yeah, the first stint I struggled with the rears a little bit, so Chuck, our engineer, made a change. That helped a little bit with balance, but I was just pushing a little bit harder on the second stint and kind of lost both ends there. So, well, car was good up until the contact with the BMW when he ran me off the road. I don't know if it was all pickup, but it stayed like that for a while. So pretty unfortunate. Not even halfway through the race at that point, and I'm getting run off the road. But it's Lime Rock. It's hard to race here, hard to pass here. Obviously, even so, there's only 3 cars in our class. We're still racing pretty hard. So trying to be respectful of their races, and hopefully we get the same respect back from them.
How difficult has it been this weekend? It's a short weekend and you've not been here with the C8R, and it's a very different machine from the C7R. It's not as if the data is transferable, I wouldn't have thought, Tommy.
No, I mean, obviously different platform. Setups are all quite a bit different. We can obviously learn from what we have learned in the past year with C7 and C6 and try to use those lessons to help with this car. But obviously once we come here for the weekend, we're pretty focused on just what this car needs, and based on the 1.5 or 2 years now of racing this car, that kind of going off of that experience now to make the car as good as we can. So certainly there's lessons to be learned from the 20-some years that Corvette Racing's been here at Lime Rock, and we definitely use some of that experience throughout the weekend so far. But when it comes to this car, it's definitely all about obviously lessons that we've learned so far with this car this year and last year.
We've got, looking forward a little bit, we can't do anything about the weather, not even Corvette Racing, good as they are. They can affect most things, but can't affect the weather. Looking forward to Road America and then it's off to Le Mans. How's the Le Mans prep been going? Because of course we've not seen the C8R at Le Mans either, and I know there's a lot of excitement about taking that car to the Circuit de la Sarthe.
Yeah, we're super geeked about going there with this Corvette C8R. Spent a lot of time in the simulator over the last 2 or 3, probably almost 4 years now that this thing's existed in some form or fashion in a sim and things like that. So it's obviously the highlight of the year for Corvette racing, to go there at Le Mans, to compete against the best in the world on that stage is something special. And I think for this team to miss last year, unfortunately, just kind of reinvigorated all the guys here from the top brass at Chevrolet and GM all the way down to us Peasley drivers who get to drive the car. To have some fun over there at Le Mans and show what this new Corvette can do.
Well, I'll ask you a question that, as a driver, you probably can't answer or don't know the answer to. This is the last season of the C8R. It sounds bizarre because it's such a new car to say that. The last season of the C8R as a GT Le Mans car in IMSA, because there isn't a category for it next year. There has been plenty of hints thrown out that it might do more WEC. There's an opportunity for it to be BOP'd back to a GT3 pace. Are you allowed to have a preference for what you did? Do you want to go off and race in the WEC? Would you like to stay here in IMSA? What's the Tommy Milner line on that? And I accept you're not speaking for Corvette Racing or GM.
Well, I think I can speak for most drivers that I think if we did every single race possible with this Corvette would be a dream. So I don't think that's probably realistic, but from us as drivers, as when it comes down to where we're racing and how much we're racing, like I said, we're sort of last on the totem pole in that sense. So we just kind of go wherever they say to go. But no matter where we go, we're definitely going to be excited to race this Corvette. These guys do an amazing job with building these race cars, racing these race cars, from strategy to car prep, all those different things. These guys are the best in the business, and wherever we go, I'm sure we'll be competitive and looking forward to racing more with this Corvette.
You get rid of one awkward Brit in the team with Ollie Gavin stepping aside, and blow me if you don't get Nick Tandy from the same part right in the centre. I mean, you could almost throw a wheel nut from Tandy's house to Ollie's place. What's it been like working with
Might be. Well, I can tell you one thing, it's a lot better to race with him than against him, that's for sure. I've raced against Nick for many, many years now, and he's obviously a massive competitor on the racetrack. And I am certainly glad he is in my car now and not having to race against him. So he's a great guy. He's fit right in with his Corvette racing team. And we haven't had a whole lot of luck this year, but hopefully it'll come here soon.
Listen, we'll let you get back to the team and try and find out what's going on. Thank you for your time, Tommy. All the best to you and to Corvette Racing, and you can give Tandy a little poke in the arm the next time you see him. Tell him I was asking after him, won't you?
I'll punch him pretty hard for you, no problem.
I did not say that. Don't get me into trouble. Cheers, Tommy. Tommy Milner joining us live from the pit lane at Lime Rock Park, where we're under a red flag at the moment for weather in the area. Shea Adam, our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter, Jeremy Shaw with me in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Quite clearly not very happy then, Tommy there, Jeremy, about the etiquette or lack thereof of the Turner BMW early on in the race.
No, true, but as he rightly points out there, it takes two to tango, and it is, when you come here, nothing's going to be easy, and as he was quite happy to point out there, the GTG cars are in their own race as well, and they don't just have two other competitors to worry about; they've got another dozen to worry about. So Tommy acknowledges that, and often when there are other races, it'll be the GTLM cars that kind of come off worse, perhaps in a clash with the prototype. So it's just one of those things that happens. He's not going to point a finger desperately hard, because he knows that anything that might have happened out in the racetrack didn't happen on purpose. There was nothing personal in there. It's just kind of the sort of close quarter battles that happen at this racetrack.
Yeah, and when everybody else is in the same battles as well, and he kind of said that, didn't he? When everyone else is in the same battle, there's not a lot of room and to give to that. Interesting, they haven't had that new car here. Jeremy, they haven't come up and done any testing here, so they've had to fall back on some respects on instinct here to get that car up to pace. And one thing about Corvette, whether there's another car in the class, another manufacturer in the class or not, they don't come anywhere to make up the numbers. So they will want to be competitive every time they roll that C8R out.
Yeah, and as you said, they'd like to be racing that car every week somewhere or another. They don't care where they race it; they just want to go race it. Of course, Le Mans is always going to be a highlight for any sports car driver. But it's a fabulous looking car. It's clearly a really fun car to drive. I mean, whenever we speak to any of the Corvette drivers, they are effusive in their praise for the car and, of course, the team. Well, one of the best teams in the business, and so who wouldn't want to go race that car every single weekend?
If I'm going to talk about it, fade my mic up. That's Jeremy Shaw, along with me, John Hindhaugh, in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Coming down to 50 minutes left on the clock. A reminder, if you're joining us on XM202, IMSA Radio RS2, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. We are on a hold with a red flag for weather in the area. The teams and more importantly our volunteers, track workers, marshals and our camera operators all being asked to stand down at the moment, and we're keeping an eye on what's going around us on the weather radar. We have more racing for you tomorrow, not here at Lime Rock Park, but Monza, the cathedral of speed. It is the final WEC World Endurance Championship race before the Le Mans 24 hours. That will be Johnny Palmer, and Bruce Jones is with Johnny tomorrow, and they will be covering the whole of the 6-hour race. If you go to radiolemans.com and then scroll down to the bottom of the page, you will see the broadcast schedule down there, and that will give you the on-air times. It's all free. There are no blocks or breaks on that, and that will be a prelude to our Hagerty Le Mans coverage, Radio Le Mans coverage in August. Every session of the 2021 24 Hours of Le Mans from Wednesday onwards. Not all broadcasters can say that, because there's not TV coverage for all of the sessions, but we'll have it all on Hagerty Radio Le Mans. And again, that is no blocks, no breaks, RS1 via radiolemans.com. Before all that, IMSA Radio gets fired up again from the 5th to the 8th of August. So that is just a couple of weeks before Le Mans, and when we're off to Road America, Elkhart Lake, America's National Park of Speed. Go from our shortest track to our longest track, and that is our next race in the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. And that's all the categories back, Shay, for that one, is it? The next time out at Road America?
I believe it is an all skates for Road America, and then we get a bit of a break because of Le Mans, and then 2 races in California in September, and those are not all skates. They're very much select categories going to each of those, but you have to tune in to find out which ones. I'll be a little cryptic on that.
Okay, fine. I'll give you that one. So at the moment we're waiting for news from the pits, from the race control, excuse me, as to what the situation will be. Let me give you a quick reminder of how things stand at the moment here, as we are under red flag situation. It is Corvette first and second overall, and in the GT LM category, with WeatherTech Racing and their Porsche in third place. They are all on the lead lap. In the GT Daytona section of the race, Heart of Racing team, as they have been for most of the contest, lead out, and the Aston Martin then is ahead of the Lamborghini Huracan GT3, the number one. So 23 leading, number one in second for Paul Miller Racing. Lexus RCF GT3 number 14 in third. Fourth different manufacturer in fourth position, the FAF Motorsport Porsche 911, and that is the number 9 car, the red and silver, the plaid car. Fifth different manufacturer in fifth is BMW, with Turner Motorsports number 96. In sixth position is a sixth different manufacturer. It's Audi and the R8 of Carbon with Peregrine Racing, the green and grey car. Might as well go through the full field for you. It's not as if we're under time pressure. GRT Grasser Racing Team Lamborghini is in seventh position. Now, as they stand, there is a split there from the Carbon car, who've dropped off the lead lap in class, but they might have just been caught between the leaders. We'll see how that shakes out and whether we get a wave by once we get rolling again. So GRT in seventh, Wright Motorsports in eighth with the number 16, the blue Porsche 911 GT3R. Ninth, Compass Racing and their orange Acura NSX, the number 76. 10th, Vassar Sullivan and the second of the Lexus, the yellow and black cars. Then it's the Acura NSX of Gradient Racing, the number 66, the gold car. At 12th, Catherine Legg for Team Hardpoint ABM, the number 88 Porsche, and Andy Laddie with Magnus for the Magnus with Archangel, that's the number 44, the white speed racing car. Jeremy, how many GTD cars do you reckon's on the lead lap?
Yeah, I'm not sure, unfortunately, because I can't see where the cars are lined up. But there's at least 9. Anyhow, I'm not quite sure whether the 10th and 11th place cars, which is the number 12 and 66, are on the lead lap as well, or not, to be honest. But I think the last couple are a lap or more down.
Yeah, well, there's nothing that we can tell you any more at the moment. As soon as we get anything, we will. However, stay with us because we can give you some more IMSA content here as we wait for word from race control, and as soon as we do, we'll get back to you. So earlier on this week, on Wednesday in fact, it was the first opportunity to download and watch the movie documentary Rookie Season, which followed the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge season in 2019 through the eyes of a team new to that competition, Rebel Rock Racing, with their urban grid Camaro GT4. Robin Liddell is the team manager and one of the driving forces behind the team, and he was part of the documentary, as was the rest of the team, which was made by Adrian Bonvento, independent filmmaker. I spoke to them earlier on this week to find out all about the rookie season.
Racing on America's classic circuits. This is IMSA Radio.
Hello everybody and welcome to a special programme on the Radio Show Limited network of channels. I'm John Hindhaugh. The movie Rookie Season is a documentary that tries to answer what seems to be a simple question. Why does anyone go motor racing? Following Rebel Rock Racing as they competed in their inaugural professional racing season under new ownership, it focuses more on emotion and meaning rather than results and statistics. In the movie, Robin Liddell, the man behind the Rebel Rock Racing Urban Grid Camaro effort in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, is one of the leading lights. He's with me now, as is the independent filmmaker Adrian Bonvento, who put this project together. Adrian, let's start with you. Obvious question, how did the project get started?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. This is just extremely exciting that it's been about 3 years of my life, from idea conceptualization to shooting to editing to producing it. So it's been it's been a long road to get here, but I'm really excited to finally get it out in the world. But in a nutshell, I'd say my motorsport journey started, I was a photographer on the other side of the fence, and I got into videography and started shooting stuff back in 2015, 2016. And I'd say it was almost back in 2015 when I first had the idea to kind of approach motorsport from a slightly different perspective. I always thought it'd be cool to produce films that sought to dig a bit deeper into, the mindsets behind these drivers and the teams, the feeling and the meaning behind the sport, rather than just race results and statistics. And back in 2016, I wanted to, what is it to race is really the question that this whole film is about in a nutshell. And it seems on the surface like a very simple, linear question, but I think it's a lot deeper than that. And part of that is sort of me wanting to, as a lifelong motorsport fan, really convey to other fans and even non-fans how I feel about the sport and how I see the sport, but also just to kind of approach it from a different angle. So I know I'm rambling a bit, but to get to the original question, I believe was how did this come about? I approached a few different teams, and long story short, I had known Robin since the Stevenson days, and we worked together on some previous short films. So him and I had a good relationship. I approached him. He introduced me to Frank Depew, and Frank Depew was really on board and great in terms of offering to support the film and giving me full access and really complete creative control, which is pretty rare.
I'll come back to that in a moment, because there's a couple of things that I want to explore with you about that, Adrian. But Robin, if I can come across to you, I think most of the people listening to this will know the story, that you were very much instrumental. More than that, you were one of the driving forces behind the Rebel Rock Racing IMSA program with the Camaro GT4s. It's all very well letting someone like Adrian come in and have access, but at the start of the season, that might not have looked like it had been a very good idea, because it can be a double-edged sword, and you didn't have a good start to the season from a team point of view.
No, we really didn't. But I mean, I think we all recognize that, for us to do this successfully, I mean, first of all, it was a relationship based on trust to an extent, because as Adrian pointed out, he had done some short films that he'd done for Stevenson, both with the Audi and the Camaro program in 2016-17. So he'd done some short movies around that, sort of 3, 4, 5 minutes. And obviously we really liked his style, and it was what people had seen of his work was popular. It was sort of, set the scene in a way that I think it's difficult for normal sort of documentary films to do. So we trusted him basically on a personal level to not make us look too bad, as it were. But also, in the end, we had to accept to a degree that it was going to be a warts and all thing. It was a fly on the wall type thing that he had. One of his key requirements, if you like, as he's already mentioned, was that he really wanted to have access all areas. And the thing about Frank and myself was that, Frank bought into it from the beginning. So when I showed Frank, I was aware of what Adrian was trying to do, and it was actually at the Roar in 2019 that we discussed this. So he approached me, or we had a chat about it, and I thought this would be a great idea for us. I thought it would be a great way of basically capturing and preserving our season for posterity, if you like, more than anything else, or as much as anything else. But also it would represent potentially a great opportunity for the team commercially, because if this film's successful, clearly it would have some kickback in that regard. And also because I liked Adrian's work, and I knew he was talented, and I liked his style and what he could do, it didn't take me very long to convince Frank that this would be a good idea. So all I really had to do was show Frank some of his shorter movies and say, look, watch this, tell me what you think of it, and then we'll have a conversation about this guy and what he can do and what he wants to do. So as soon as Frank had watched them, he went, yeah, I like his style. I mean, Frank's late sister, bless her, was actually involved in the film industry to an extent. So, he's got a creative eye for things to an extent also, and he liked the style. And once he'd watched it, he said, yeah, absolutely interested. And we talked to Adrian, and Frank agreed that he would help support it as best he could. and that we would give him, one of his key things was that he wanted access to everything. And so we gave him that. And to your point, John, of course, that, provided elements throughout the film, not just at the beginning of the year, but it provided elements throughout the year, which were a bit, from my point of view, after the fact, a little bit almost cringeworthy is too strong a word to use, but from my own personal point of view, as I'm sure you'll appreciate in your business, it's very difficult to see others, to see yourself as others see you. And that's made it difficult to watch in elements of it. But at the same time, like I say, I trusted Adrian, and the fact that the season started off a bit shaky, in reality actually just created the story for itself. We didn't have to seek a plot or a story. Yeah. The scene was then set for the story that the film told, which was obviously a very shaky start. And then ultimately, as you know, we went on to win a couple of races that year and have some success.
I do like, Adrian, the fact that you haven't made it look easy. You could have airbrushed out or left on the cutting room floor some of those more difficult times, both at the start of the season and in the decision-making processes later on. But access all areas did mean that. And I think it's good for the sport that it doesn't look easy, because you can't just drag 15, 20 people off the street and get a GT4 car and go racing and be anything like the level that you would need to be in IMSA. Having access all areas though, Adrian, did that cause you technically some decisions to have to be made? Because clearly you did most, if not all, of the filming, and you can't be everywhere at once. So how did you just leave GoPros all over the place? Was the little button cameras on people? You utilised some head cameras for some of the crew. How did you sit down and plan that out to be able to get everything? But clearly you were only in one place at one time.
Yeah, well, it wasn't easy. And to answer your question, I was the only person that did any filming or any editing. Like I did, one person running around like crazy. To answer your question, I had a primary cinema camera I used for most of the shots. GoPros were only used in car for the races, but it was tight, a lot of races. I mean, I was lucky enough, since I've been doing this now professionally for 4 to 6 years, it allowed me to sort of preempt what might happen and to be in the right place at the right time. And that's a huge part of it, to know when to be in the pits, when to be on the track. I was tied into the radio at all times so I could react. And then obviously for each practice session, each race, I would ahead of time get all I had 4 cameras in the car at most times, plus a separate audio recorder. And that was all plugged into the car so it wouldn't shut off. So Yeah.
So do you think your previous experience in and around particularly IMSA races allowed you to have that spatial awareness of where you had to be at any one time? Because I presume somebody coming in from another sport, or even somebody very well versed in making documentaries, you had to effectively read the race as it applied to the Rebel Rock Racing Camaro.
Exactly, yeah, and I think it has. I mean, not only the familiarity with the IMSA paddock, how they operate, because pit lane is pretty chaotic, and you have to kind of always have your head in a swivel. So I always sort of knew what was going on, and I was staying out of people's ways, because when they were doing pit stops, I was right up there, almost like I was a member of the crew, and I had to not get in their way, because obviously everybody's here first and foremost to race, and that was one of the challenges, was how do I tell a compelling film and get the shots I really want to get without affecting the race at all in any way.
Correct. And was it a conscious decision early on that you were only going to use your own footage? There isn't any IMSA race footage. We see it sometimes in the background on the screens, but it's very much a first-person movie that takes you right inside the team. And was that deliberate and conceived right at the beginning?
It was, yeah, and because a lot of my inspiration from this film had come from the feelings I've had, the emotions I've had growing up as a kid, going to the racetracks, and I really wanted to try and convey that. I have a little bit of my own style when it comes to shooting as well. So yeah, I really made a decision to say I just want to do this completely myself, and especially when it came to the in-car cameras. Broadcast does a great job of covering the race, and that's amazing from what they do from their perspective. From a cinema perspective, I wanted different angles. I wanted higher quality audio. I wanted the entirety of the thing at a higher resolution, which isn't easy to do for broadcast. So that was a conscious decision. And I really, having actually been lucky enough in my life to be in the passenger seat of a 2-seated race car on the track, knowing how that feels, how intense it is, I wanted to try and convey those feelings, those emotions, those forces with cameras during the race.
And again, a deliberate decision not to have a narrator. Robin pops up in live situations, as do other members of the crew, and there's live audio from what's going on. Robin pops up with, and I'm going to ask him about some of these quotes in a moment, but there isn't, here we are, this is the season, this is round one, this is what's happening. You do it graphically, and the pictures really breathe here, Adrian, as well. That's the thing that I noticed.
Yeah, no, I wanted, and my inspiration, a lot of my stuff has come from cinema rather than traditional documentary filmmaking, and obviously it's impossible to actually create cinema at a race because you don't have multiple takes. You do the best you can, nobody's staging anything, it's all what you can capture. But I wanted it to feel more like a proper film, and I didn't want anybody to be taken out of the action at any moment. So the challenge was, how do we convey what's going on to those who don't really understand the sport completely without taking you completely out of the moment and giving you a racing 101 breakdown. And the biggest thing that's the most visually obvious is that I didn't want anybody sitting in a chair looking at a camera or looking to the side of a camera. So that decision framed most of the film. And made it even more difficult because now I have to fill 75 minutes of actual action and not just interviews.
I like the way that you haven't talked down to everybody. You expect them to have a level of understanding about what they're seeing, and if they don't, there's not a big Basil exposition that works you through it. However, what you do get, and Robin, you're key to this, as are the rest of the team, you get the emotion of this. And some of your comments, and I jotted a few down when I was watching the movie. I can't replace racing. I'm not sure what I'm going to do when that goes away. And then later you say there's no point in looking for something else. This is it. We get that was really heartfelt when you said that. Those comments weren't written down, were they?
Well, no, I mean, Adrian, we did quite a lot of, one of the things that he wanted to do was spend quite a bit of time doing voiceover over the course of the weekends at various points throughout the year. And he used the voiceover, as you know, having seen it now, to sort of set the scene or give some backdrop to what was going on. So rather than having narration as such, there's a lot of voiceover of predominantly myself, but obviously some of the others. And yes, I think... Adrian has talked about it already, and so have you. You've touched on it about the emotion. I mean, clearly, what he's tried to do is portray the feelings that are around going racing. And his big question is why you go racing.
Yeah.
Well, I've found it personally actually very difficult to communicate some of this with him, and he has been sort of throughout the time we've worked together on this. He's sort of tried to give me the confidence that actually what the material I'm giving him is what he wants. But to me, it's like it doesn't come across so well, or it doesn't maybe come easily. So there were times and occasions where he would say to me, I want to do some voiceover with you back at the hotel. And I'm just like, I really don't want to do this weekend. Like, I just can't get my head in that space. And it was quite difficult because what he would do is we'd start talking, and of course, inevitably, a lot has ended up on the cutting room floor. He's clearly, what the guy has done individually, I can't speak highly enough about his talent and his ability of what he's done, because for one person to have gathered the amount of material that he's done in the space of a year's racing, from all of his cameras that he's had everywhere, all over the car, in the pit lane, on himself, everything, and then put that together has just been an incredible piece of work. And I think you can close your ears, Adrian, but I think he's very talented, and two, the skill level that he's got to put this together has been incredible. But it's been tough for all of us, I think, to contribute in our own little way. And, there were times, like I say, when he was asking me stuff or doing these voiceover interviews, as it were, and I really struggled. And he made me dig deep at times to come out with things that meant something to me at some level that I could try and share.
And that comes out, Robin. There's times where it almost sounds cathartic, almost, that you're on, in a session and opening up. I found that really profoundly moving. I did. And you did great, by the way. You think you didn't describe it? My goodness, you've distilled it down very, very, very well, Robin. So congratulations. Adrian, a final thought from you. So you come away with all of that footage. I've often said to people about books and movies in the past, the decision on what to leave out is probably important about as to what to put in to the finished article, and also the decision of when it is actually quote unquote finished. What did you get out of rookie season, the year you spent with Rebel Rock Racing in the Urban Grid Camaro, that surprised you the most, and you said, right, well, as I'm doing my plan, that on the storyboard, that's in, that's got to go in, because I never thought I'd get that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's to me it's fairly obvious, but I mean that amazing race in the rain in Road America, which starts and ends the film in a way. Like Robin said, the story did fortunately almost write itself. I mean, coming from a very low to a near miss at Watkins Glen to a win at CTMP, and then a bit of a low at Lime Rock when there were higher expectations, and then back up, ecstatic at that, crossing the line millimeters behind or in front of the McLaren. That, I mean, obviously I knew I had to work that into the film in some prominent way, and without giving away too much to the film, it definitely takes a lead role. And all the in-car that I captured during that race, 4 different camera angles, the audio and the team radio, all that stuff to work it together into more of a cinematic several laps. I knew that had to be in the film. And that was really, and obviously the chase at the end at CTMP too, with Kyle Marcelli on Robin's tail when there was a yellow flag and the race was restarted with just a little bit to go. That was another great sequence. And funny aside there, we talked before about, me being one person around the track. So I was actually all the way at the end of one end of CTMP by the back straight filming. And I hear on the radio that the team's actually going to make it to the end on fuel, and I'm like, I cannot miss this. And I'm sprinting back, like lugging all my gear. I was like, if I don't get there, I will never forgive myself. And I was sweating and I was out of breath. And I arrived at the team tent like the last lap, like out of breath, like I got to capture this moment. No, seriously, I sprinted like the length almost of the track to get back there, with stopping every so often to film him and Marcelli, Robin Marcelli, as they went by, and then continuing along. So that was...
Impound cars for both classes are the same as the podium in GTLM 3, 4, 79, and in GTV 23, 1, and 14.
The WeatherTech SportsCar Championship on IMSA Radio.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the news that with 23 minutes and 41 seconds still on the clock, the checkered flag is being waved at the start-finish line at Lime Rock Park. So that is all she wrote for the WeatherTech SportsCar Championship and the Northeast Grand Prix, and we were about an hour and 6 minutes to go when the red flag came out for weather in the area. So obviously there is no change to the order that we finished with a little while ago. It's the 2 Corvettes, 3 from 4, that win and are second in GT Le Mans, with WeatherTech Racing in third, and in GT Daytona, after a hard-fought race to the time of the stoppage, Heart of Racing team and their Aston Martin takes the victory and the 23 car. The Lamborghini Huracan GT3 of Paul Miller Racing in second for the number 1 car, after a smart bit of pit work pulled them out of the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th and pushed them up into a podium position. Vassar Sullivan Lexus RCF GT3 number 14 in third position. Well, a sad way to end, but the only possible decision that could have been made by race control. We'll give them they've given us the information as soon as they had it as well. So thank you very much to everybody at IMSA for that. What we're going to do is roll straight into Michelin post-race tech. As the race has now been called, we'll give you some news on the points situation and also pick up with some of your questions at IMSA Radio, hashtag Michelin PRT, already coming in right now. So we'll take a short breath with the news that the checkered flag has been thrown to end the Northeast Grand Prix. Michelin post-race tech is next on IMSA Radio.